right?
It's
Like that
what
thing
is
is
what's the
scary.
new word you said? The majorist? It's like
The
the majorist
majorist.
thing. That's
Yeah,
my new word.
majorist.
Majorist. I'm writing that
And
down.
don't nobody say nothing, put nothing in the comments talking about that's not a word. I already know it's not a word, but majorist. It's a word that
I love it. It's
everybody
majorist.
use. It is. Right? It's so serious. It's so important.
Mm,
I think we handle it so frivolously today.
mm-hmm. Oh
No,
yeah. Oh,
that thing
it's
scares me.
scary. It's like it's so holy. Like I
It
know we say
is.
these things, but like I'm going back to old school because now I could be the mother of the church,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Because I'm old now. But we go back, and it's like, oh my gosh, that you would. I mean, I was so terrified, but then but I believe that when we act out on that kind of faith, it's such a humbling experience because it's like how would you use somebody like me?
Correct.
That's how I feel. Like I just told you my part of my
Hmm.
story, right?
Hmm.
So like how would you use somebody like me to do something so majorist?
Welcome to the Change Mind, a place where we can seek to be changed for the purpose of healing one's mind, body, and spirit. I am your host, Tamu King, and thank you for connecting with me today. Before we begin this amazing interview, please remember to click like and subscribe. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing this wonderful individual. We were introduced to each other many years ago due to providing similar services as trainers. I am going to allow her to formally introduce herself to our community, but I would like to say that she is one of God's beautiful souls, and I love her style. With that said, I would like to introduce to you Miss Dena Billups. How are
Well,
you?
hello. Thank you for inviting me to the Change Mind.
Mhm.
I'm really excited, Tamu King, just to be in your company. I'm really honored. I got excited when you asked me to be a part of this mind, body, and soul. I'm always excited to see what you're up to. And I just want to introduce myself to your audience by saying, one, I am first and foremost a child of God, and I love doing the work that you mentioned about training. I've always had a purpose to work with women and children. And with that being said, I have two businesses, currently three, but two businesses that are full time for me. One is I have a nonprofit organization called Anime Sunflower Seeds, named after my grandmother, who had 17 children and 67 grandkids and 76 great grands, the last I counted, which was 20 years ago. So it's a whole lot more than that now. And we've been in existence in the nonprofit in Burlington City for 2 years. We're going on our second year. My daughter is the ED, which I can just wipe my forehead because that's such a big help when I have another business which is Art of Training and Development, which I started when I left the state of New Jersey, admired by all of those wonderful consultants like yourself to by faith start my own business. And so Art of Training and Development, art actually stands for Activate Right Thinking. And so I those two businesses are the heartbeat of what I do on a daily basis, with a lot of help and a lot of support. I run those two businesses. The Art of Training and Development also has a component of it, which is I have a coaching school. It's called the Art School in Activate Right Thinking, and we run classes with that program where we expand leadership for those who work with vulnerable communities. So it's a trauma informed coaching program, and we actually have a course starting up in February where I work with a lot of faith based communities and a lot of nonprofit organizations and anybody who wants to expand working with vulnerable communities, learning the ethics of coaching. And so that is run with wonderful facilitators that have joined our team that have a lot of experience in that field of coaching. And it really has been an amazing journey for me with that. I've learned as a coach how to control the fixer in me and realize that people are resourceful. And so being able to teach that to others in leadership, it helps them not to become so burned out without being a therapist. Because not everybody's going to be a therapist, but people do need to know how to work with others.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. I remember, right? I remember, as trainers, and then when you were talking about starting this and now seeing where you are now. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I started in 2000 and I think it was 2014, but I left the full-time job for the state of New Jersey with all the good benefits and uh,
Yeah,
and
right?
the good pay in 2016, like 2 years after that. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey to unfold and really take that leap of faith, but being obedient and like really hearing when it's time to go was all a part of the plan as well.
Yeah.
And yes, and I'm an author. I'm author. If you see behind me is the cover of my book. I'm an author artist. I designed the cover of the book, Naked. Naked stands for Stripping to the Core in 40 Days is the subtitle. And I take women through a 40-day journey. Once a year, we've done that since 2018. My daughter actually started doing the journey with the women. And then she became a married woman with 2 kids and said, Mom, I can't do this anymore. So I had to be the voice of my own book. And that was scary.
Okay.
That was scary for me because it's a vulnerable place. But then you're asking people to strip to the core and be vulnerable. So you also have to be vulnerable yourself. And so it's been a blessing to see every year women go through this 40-day journey, and then on there either they do it individually or collectively. And then we have a group that meets every Friday morning at 6:15 in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and as a coaching group, I coach them through, and it's very informal. They just kind of have naked chats, and we lead. It started out from just going through the book journey, and people were like, "We still want to do it. We still want to continue this." So we do it every Friday morning, 6:15 to 7:15.
That's beautiful. And I
Thank
can
you.
say for myself that I have the book, and it is a great book. I worked through the book.
Oh,
Honestly, I don't know that I finished through the book, but I got through a good portion of it. It's a great book.
oh,
It
thank you.
really
Thank you
is.
for saying that, Tamu.
Yeah, you have to dig.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
dig. And if you're not ready to dig, I'm not gonna say don't get the book because I want you to get the book, but just just get ready, right?
No,
To dig a
yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. People say that to me. They're like, I've had people say, I'm not ready to get naked. But the thing I tell people is, one thing about being naked is no one can make you take off your own clothes
Mm-hmm.
because then that would be a violation to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you do it at your own pace. You don't even have to do it 40 days. Some people have said, I had to put it down. I had to stop. I say do it with a friend, do it along. Sometimes in the book you discover like I need a little bit more than this, and so some people have, as a result, reached out and got therapy alongside their journey with making the book a companion for themselves. I always tell people, doodle your thoughts, make it fun, make it your companion. You know, I draw, I have illustrations in the book that are kind of quirky and funny. But at the same time, it's serious enough to take yourself serious
Yeah.
through the 40 days.
Yeah. And we'll mention it at the end, but I just wanted to say it now, just in case if someone didn't get to the end. They can purchase this book on Amazon, right?
Yes, yep. They can
Any
purchase it
place
on
else?
Amazon. It's probably, I mean, you'll get it quicker if you purchase it on Amazon, but
Okay.
they could also go to my website as well.
Okay.
And we can talk about that at the end. But yeah, they can purchase it on Amazon.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I wanted to do this series. I call it "What's Your Story," because we know that when we hear people's stories, it can really help to encourage others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, everyone is not willing to go to a therapist. Everyone's not willing, to do many things that we need to do in order to be encouraged to move forward or to work through things. So many times people, just by hearing other people's stories, is
Mm.
what helped them to begin to go
Wow.
forward or to
Mm.
begin to say, well, if that person can do it, then I can do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If that person can have the courage to do it, then I feel like I can too. So I really believe stories are so important. Many times people say, well, I really don't have a story. I say, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all have a story to tell. It just looks a little different. So, that's why I asked you here, because you're such a remarkable woman. You've done so much, you're doing so much, and I feel like your story could really be an encouragement to my community. So,
Mm.
with that said, Dena, what is your story?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you can start from wherever you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Thank you. You know, since we talked about, coming on and meeting with you today, and I kept asking myself, Dina, what's your story? And one of the things I started thinking about is that the story is not the first thing I said. Well, your story is not finished,
Mm-hmm.
and I've realized that, but it does have a beginning, and it does have a beginning, and of course we're all going to have an end to our story, right? Or, um, you know, and an eternal end,
Mm-hmm.
those that believe. But I was thinking about like, when did my story begin? Like, when did it begin? And I started thinking about um, just who I was as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
as a child. And one of the things I'm actually working on another book, but in this part of this,
I was going
me
to ask
thinking
you that
about
because
my,
I had a feeling.
you
I
did.
was. I was going to say, are you working on another book? I don't know. I just
I
had that feeling.
am, I
I was
am,
going to
but I
say
take a
that.
long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But
Sorry to
when I
interrupt.
started thinking,
But
huh?
I said sorry to interrupt.
No, no, please. I love this conversation. But I think about my story beginning like on the grass. Um, as a little girl, probably around 11, when my dad used to work at New Jersey Bell.
Hmm.
And that will tell you I'm dating myself because there's no such thing as New Jersey Bell anymore. There's like Verizon, but there's no New Jersey Bell. And what he used to do is he would bring home wires from New Jersey Bell, and he would say, I would be so excited about these wires that he would bring home that they were going to throw away. So he would bring me home these bags of wires, and and I'd sit on the lawn in the front, and of course, this hill that I used to sit on seemed so big at the time, but when I go back to that street on Ardsley Avenue, in Trent, New Jersey, which is Ewing, New Jersey, and I would sit on my lawn, and that hill was so small right now. But he would bring these wires home, and he would say, here, take the wires. And I would sit there and create, and I would put things together through the wires. And that, so I don't want to give too much away, but it made me think about like that being the beginning of learning about who I was. and that I could create things, and that I had this gift to in my hands to utilize art in such a way, right? Um, and so that was the beginning of my journey as a young girl, like not even knowing that that it was my dad that would say, here, take something and make something out of it. And so his voice kind of resonates with me throughout my life in the most significant parts of my life. And so as I think about, my dad being the beginning of me kind of understanding that I had this gift to create, I remember as a teenage girl at 19, I became pregnant. I became pregnant and unwed, right? And the person I was scared to tell the most was my dad, So he was always that person. I was like, I'm not telling my dad. So I made my mom tell my dad. And I told my mom in a way where it probably wasn't the most sophisticated way. I literally wrote a note and threw it down at the steps and told her I was pregnant. I had finished high school, but I had been disappointed about some things because I wanted to go off to college right after high school. And I got this notice in the mail, or no, I got a phone call the day I was leaving to go to college, the day I was leaving, saying that I couldn't go because I didn't have enough financial aid. I didn't have, or no, the housing wasn't available or something like that. And I was so disappointed because I was packed, had a van out, like literally ready to go, had bought all my things for the summer. And so with that kind of discouragement, I kind of went into my own self and really didn't know how to handle like the emotions and the disappointment. And so I was dating somebody at the time, and I was pretty much excited to leave, and bye, I'm going off to college. I was excited. And so what I did was I latched on to the familiar, like, well, I'm just gonna, this is my, sometimes we think like this is the end of my story right now.
Yeah.
So I felt just disappointed, didn't know that I was in that kind of like mode, if you will. And so when I became pregnant, it was my dad who I told my mom, and then 2 weeks later I remember him walking in the room and like saying, you know, who is this? He said, so what is this I hear that you're pregnant? What is this I hear that you're pregnant? And I remember just being like so scared and nervous, like, and I was just like looking up, I can even remember the color of the room was blue. I can remember, literally can remember the room being blue. And then I had to tell him, I was like, yeah, I'm pregnant. But the thing that he said to me was, he said, and he paused and he said, well, being a parent is a hard job. He said, but you're going to be a good mother.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah. And I was like, oh,
Okay, Dad.
because I had already felt the shame. I had already felt disappointed. And the person that I thought was going to be the best was my mom. And my mom was not the best to get to receive it, right? She was worried about like what other people would say and think and blah 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 blah. But when he said that, I just had this boost of energy like, oh well, if my dad said it,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm
I'm
good.
good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I can do it. I can accomplish. So here I was. I didn't get into the college I was supposed to go to, but I still went to school and I was an art major. And I was going to Mercer County College at the time, and I went until I was like 8 months pregnant, until one of my college professors was like, "You need to not come to class anymore because you're gonna deliver this baby in the class." So I remember with my huge art, I think portfolios, walking around downtown Trenton, drawing pictures of the building and just taking it all in. But
Can I
also,
pause for a minute here?
sure.
Because your dad, I have a heart for dads. It's just I have a heart for moms too. Just parents, period.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about what your dad did, so it made me think about my daughter. I
Mm.
remember when she came to me, and she was crying, and I was just sitting on the couch, and I'm looking at her, and she was like, "Mom, I got something to tell you," and I'm like, "Okay." And so she was like, "I got something to tell you," and I said, "What? You pregnant?" And she looked at me. Matter of fact, she brought this up not too long ago. She was like, "How did you know?" I said, "I just knew."
Wow.
I said, "What? You pregnant?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And she laid in my lap and stroked her, stroking her hair. I said, "It's gonna be okay. Your life's
Mm-hmm.
gonna change, but it's gonna be okay." And then I
Mm.
go back even further. When I got pregnant,
Mm.
my mom was something similar. So I'm saying this to say it's something, but I also know people's situations where the parents put people out,
Yes.
parents cursed them out, parents
Yes.
yelled through the roof, right? So I heard of the opposite.
Right.
So it's something about, it's just that, yes, it's not anything a parent, particularly when their child is young, that a parent wants to hear, right? We,
Mm-hmm.
we want our children to do different. We want them to do better than us. We want them to go further than us. Yes, but it's something about when we can just say, okay, it's going to be hard, but you got this.
Yes, it is.
Or it's okay. Like, it just gives us, like, okay,
It's
maybe
like a
it's
sense
not
of hope.
it. Yeah, that's it, right? Like a sense of hope. Maybe it's not going to be as bad as I thought it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be. Yes, it's going to be hard, right? So just having that, right? Just
Yeah.
having that hope, just having that encouragement can go a long way. And it could also
Yes.
make the child feel like, okay, well, maybe this is not the end of my rope. This is because I
Right.
did have on another side, in regards to my daughter, her
Mm-hmm.
um, grandmother, who's no longer here, she had said to me, "Well, your life is over."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "No," because I had a mama and daddy who told me different. But what if she was all that I heard, and she was like, "Your life
Exactly.
is over," right? It could have took me down a different path, a different road. So to hear, so I just love that. I just wanted to
Yes.
go back to that. I love to hear how your
Yes.
dad responded,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "Okay, well, it's going to be hard, but you're going to be a good mom," right? This is
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, dad,
Right.
to run from you, but okay, thank
Right. Everything
you."
about that. It was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And it was, it was a really different, it was a very difficult time for me.
Hmm.
Because, but I had the courage, and I remember telling my daughter's father, like, so I'm going to have this baby and I'm going to be okay. Like, I just had this, like, so I don't know if you're going to be here or not, but, I just had this confidence that came from the power of the words that my dad, and it
Love
just
it.
reminds me of like how our heavenly father is,
Hmm.
because it's this confidence that no one else can give you. Those,
Yep.
it's the power of words.
Yep.
It's the power of words. And you know and then I realized I wasn't the only person in the situation, and I knew I made
Yeah.
choices, and I owned up to my choices and my accountability. But it was the beginning of how. So I go back to the wires, because it's like, so how do you rewire your situation? Now it looks different,
Hmm.
so how do you now think about your pathway differently?
Hmm.
So I had my next book is called Pretty Wired.
I love
And
it. I love
and
it.
yeah, so it's like it's made me realize, even talking to you today, it's like, how do you rewire the and how do you find that spark again?
Hmm.
How do you rewire? How do you find it? Like, where is it when you feel that low? And it doesn't matter if other people are going through that situation. You're trying to find meaning for your own self, whatever the situation is, rather it's a pregnancy. And the funny thing about it, I had another person who was very instrumental during that time of my life, and always has thread throughout my life, and that was a lady, and I say everybody should have a Miss Franklin.
Okay. Hey,
So
Miss
Miss
Franklin.
Franklin, say that again.
Hey, Miss Franklin.
Yes, everybody should have a Miss Franklin, and she went to my church, and she was the person, as a matter of fact, who would say things like, "So, what's this? I hear that you're pregnant," and she said to me, "You're smarter than that." So that was another powerful thing, but she didn't say it. See, there's people who can say things and they can condemn you.
Yes.
And then there's people
Yes.
who can say things because they say the same thing, but they love you,
Correct.
right?
So you can feel and hear the love.
You can feel and hear it. So even when she said it, I didn't expect that from her because everybody else was going, "Oh, you're going to be okay, blah, 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 blah." And she was like, "You're smarter than that, Dena." And she was right. And she always challenged me to, like, she challenged me in places and spaces that no one else did. And there were times I was in a play, and she's like, "I want you to stop being in the background. I'm going to give you the leading part." And so she challenged me to be the leader, have the leading role in my life, And so when I always wanted to kind of stay shy and be in the background, as a matter of fact, I have the picture of me being in the play. I don't know if you can even see it.
Yes, I can. Put your
It's,
fur on. Is that a fur like a?
that's a fur.
Yes.
Yes, it was called Youth on the Auction Block, and I was in this play, and she gave me the leading role, and I was so shy. I was a shy kid, and she said, "Mm-mm." She always saw more than I saw in myself, and so she remained one of those significant people that helped me be who I am today. And I laugh because I had shared this with a friend, and when I started my journey of helping people who are vulnerable, and she said, when I started my journey, somebody said, "Oh, you're Miss Franklin. You are Miss Franklin now. Like, you have taken on Miss Franklin's, like a Miss Franklin in your life and your heart." And I said, "Oh my gosh." She was so significant in making sure, you know, my education. Just gave me so many words of wisdom. And she became like a second mom. I actually lived with her at one point.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so those were very crucial points in my life. So I'm as I move forward, from those years, I love how, and I'll say this, how God can take something like all of that
Mm-hmm.
and then like turn it around,
Yep.
for good. I had so much growing to do, and I think people don't give that space and time to grow. But I had so much growing to do but I knew I wanted to be a good mom,
Yeah.
and I was going to learn how to do it. And lo and behold, at 23 years old, I started running a program for teen moms.
Wow.
Did I think I was qualified? No.
I'm sure you
Did
did.
I? I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that was in Trent, New Jersey. I was working for a school-based program in Trenton, working, and I had to start the program from scratch. And it was called MELD, Minnesota Early Learning Division, and it was out of the program was out of Minnesota, and they sent me to Minnesota to be trained. I didn't even know what I was doing. I hadn't finished school yet, and so, when I tell people, you can't make some of this stuff up. Like, I didn't have all the education I needed, but I had the will. I had the tenacity to continue to go. And some of those young women that I was working with, that I started training back then, I started training people that were older than me to run this program.
Wow.
And I was smart enough to know that I didn't have all the wisdom. So I would get a lot of older people to work in the program to help me with this brand new program in Trenton, New Jersey. And I ended up like being in the newspaper and, you know, for the work that I was doing. And I was getting paid. It was flexible enough that I could still be a parent. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I could provide hope for somebody else. I run into young girls from that program and I was like, oh my God, how did they get that old? And I was like, oh, I wasn't much older than them. You know, I wasn't much older than those girls. And I remember them saying, like, how do you know how to help us? And I'm like, because I was a single parent. You know, I was a teen mom. I was a, you know, and so, you know, knowing that and it takes you on this journey because you have these lived experiences.
Yeah.
And I think you do a disadvantage by not telling your story. So I look at today, I mean, it's so funny. My daughter, who is now 33 years old, and I'm really dating myself, oh my gosh, but she's 33 years old, and I didn't finish my art degree that I wanted to finish. But, you know, I took her with me to school one time, and then she finished her art degree at
Wow.
Philadelphia Art Institute.
She's
And
pretty good.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so you can see the dimensions of life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember her being 5 years old and me taking her to a class in Philly that I wanted to take these art classes, and I took her with me. And she drew, I still have the picture, it's on my website, of the charcoal flower that looks like a sunflower, which is my favorite flower. And who would have known that she would be going to school in Philadelphia as an art major? She was fashion design and fashion merchandising and advertising or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but she went to school, finished, and got her degree. And, you know, it took me down a journey of wanting to serve in that capacity. And then later going back and finishing my degree and, you know, getting my master's in human services and knowing that I wanted to help women and children along this journey. And I'm like, wow. And then being able to train people to be like Miss Franklin, you know, to be the people who ask the right questions or who really have a heart for this work, and really, because you don't know who you don't know who you're gonna connect to.
You don't.
And I love that John Maxwell says, you know, everyone communicates, but few people connect. And so it's those connections. It's those connections that have allowed me to go on to the next level. And so, you know, later in life, you know, I became a wife. I got married in 2010. You know, we're 14 years of marriage, and, you know, I met my husband. But I met my husband at a time where I was ready. I think at a time where I really got to know myself and that I could really, if I could be the muse of my own life. Where, you know, I kind of knew what I didn't want anymore. And by the time my husband came, I don't even think I wanted to get married. Because I was like, oh my gosh, God, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
finally at this place where I'm seeing the color of life. My daughter was about to go to college and I'm singing and I'm like, I don't want to ruin this. I don't want to mess this up, if you will. Like, I don't want to. And so
I feel like it's a real, like, I don't know if it's a comfortable place, but it's just like a peaceful. It just feels
Yes.
good. It feels right. It's like because
Mm.
I have that every so often. I have that thought, and I say to myself, um,
Mm.
I want to be in a relationship. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be nice to be in a relationship. And then I say to myself, oh man, this feels really good. I ain't got to
Yes.
say nothing to nobody. I ain't got to answer nobody. I can do what I want to do. I can go where I want to go. I know it sounds kind of selfish in some ways. But then I say, and I'm like, okay. And then I get to a point and I say, okay, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
when you send them, I'll be ready. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's a good place to be though, Tamu, because
Yeah.
I think by that time, like that, I was actually ready. I mean, I didn't even know. I had this thing where I was like, Lord, I have a desire to be married, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to a point where I think I said, God, but I don't want this desire to be bigger than you, than my desire for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took me
Yep.
a long time to get to
Yep.
that place
Yep. Yep.
because when I wasn't at that place, I was meeting the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I finally got to the place where I was so satisfied when my husband came, I was like, oh, but because I was so comfortable in who I was,
Yeah.
and God really showed me who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also at a place where I just didn't want to compromise that.
Right. Yep.
So I think for me though, if I could say this, I feel like even when I got married, that's a whole nother story, leading up to it. It was the first time I was able to do it right,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it took somebody who was like, their actions lined up with their words
Yeah.
for me to believe that I didn't have a lot of trust. So I had to be delivered, if you will,
Yep.
from a lot of my past relationships
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of disappointments that I even saw in childhood with, you know, between my parents, they were growing too. My parents got married very young. They were 18 when they got married.
Okay.
So, I had to unlearn and relearn. And they were doing the best that they knew how to do and growing too.
Mm-hmm.
So they've just done 50 something years of marriage.
Wow.
And I remember my dad saying something like, you know, I didn't know how to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, he didn't know he was starting from his own place. So I think historically, black families are learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're learning. It's a lot that we have had to learn and unlearn.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me love my parents more because they tried and they were doing the best. And I learned so much from both my parents. Like I learned how to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Even he took an early retirement, and I was the one that was always with him when he was doing, those entrepreneurial things.
Okay.
My mom, she was just such a mother and a good mom. She was very motherly in so many ways, and I think I learned from the best from both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and I think that is how it makes us who we are. Learning and unlearning patterns of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I think I'm still learning my parents. I'm still learning, and I giggle at their life now because they're at such a peaceful place in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm still learning, and my dad is he's I still like look at him as one of the wisest people that I know.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. This. I don't think we ever stop growing. So
Right.
when you say, they're still learning, to me, when you get to the point where you stop growing, you're in the ground.
Yeah.
right? You ever think you reached that part? So yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to
Right.
be able to see it, right?
Yes.
See them grow. Like I watch my mom and how she still continues to grow. Like before my dad passed away, the same thing.
Mm.
You know, so yeah, it's and it is beautiful to see. Even though my parents weren't together, um,
Mm-hmm.
they separated when I was 4. But I tell people my parents did very well at co-parenting.
Wow.
You know, and I remember saying one time to my mom, I said, Mom, I said, it's really a blessing to see how you and my dad get along because it helped us as we grew up. And, you know, she said, well, babe, in the beginning we had our moments. You know, we had to work to where we were. And I get that, but I appreciate that they both worked
Yeah.
to get to a place to where they can be in the same space. You
Yes.
know, when we would have events and I'd be like, Mom,
Mm-hmm.
Dad's coming. Or, you know, and she'll be like, okay, thank you for telling me. And they get along and they talk. And you know what I mean? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
even though they weren't together, they just created that love and allow
Mm-hmm.
us to see, like, basically they co parented very, very well.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And to see their growth as individuals was also very helpful. So I hear you when you say,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think like it just gives you compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think even with my daughter's father, we learned how to get along, and I'm his parents are like my second parents.
Okay. Awesome.
And you know, because I was younger and they were my support when I was in college. He was too, you know, and I wanted her to have a healthy relationship with him, how whatever that looked like for her.
Mm-hmm.
So today, you know, it's funny because he'll call my husband like, "Hey, J Dog," you know, and they like it's a good thing to see the families come together,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
because it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't.
It doesn't have to be that way. It could be messy. It could be messy, and you know, so to see the dimensions, and then you know, like I said, and then I got married, and then I have another son. I have a son, not another son. I have a son.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I became a mom again. And I always say I was a young mom. Now I'm an old mom.
How old is he now?
He's gonna be 9 in December. You
My
know
grandson is 9.
what?
Yes. My pumpkin.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Wow. He's 9. I remember when he was a little guy.
He was a little baby. He's 7 months. 7 months when
Wow.
he came into our life, and you know that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm.
His story is miraculous to me in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always careful how I share it because I want him to have his own
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so but is he keeps me, oh my gosh, he is such a light to my world. He keeps me so grounded. He keeps me like simplifying. He
Mm-hmm.
keeps me not looking at like hurrying through life and feeling like I have to, you know, accomplish so much that he keeps me in the present,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if that
That's
makes
good.
sense.
Yeah. Because we don't necessarily always know how to do that so well.
No.
Right? I know for myself, I'm always, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I had to start doing that recently and say, wait, stop, hold up. Like, this is what I'm saying to myself. I'm like, hold up, wait, stop, pause. Be right here. Right? I had to
Yes.
say to God, please forgive me. Help me to be right here, right
Right.
now, enjoying this moment
Right.
instead of having my brain, pew, right, 2, 3 months, years ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a practice.
It's a practice. I remember when he was younger and he would point at the window and I'm like, what is he pointing out the window? What does he want? He wanted to go outside. I mean, he wasn't even one yet. And I would take him out in the backyard and I said, man, I have this beautiful backyard that I can go out and I don't even know that it's beautiful because I haven't been out here. And he helped me to go out. I said, oh, I got mushrooms in the backyard.
You don't even know what you got.
I don't even know what's back here, right? I put a blanket out there and
It's
I
nice.
love the outdoors, but I wasn't going out there,
Yeah.
you know, and I laugh, I joke around, I tell people, I said, might be an old mom, but I can do a cartwheel. I can do a
Awesome.
cartwheel with my son. He
Okay.
challenges me every year for a cartwheel.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, he's really helped me slow down, and I learned, God is so amazing because when I see him, I see a little bit of myself. The way he learns is so interesting to me. Um, and so I'm able to help him, in ways that I wish someone helped me. Um, I'm so patient. He teaches me patience. I've learned how to be patient. I take my time. When I notice sometimes if he's not in a good space, it's because we're all over the place. Or if people say, "Oh, you're so lucky," I said, "No, we're so lucky, to have this opportunity to be able to raise this great, great kid who is I never knew what it would be like to have a son. I was always a girly girl." But I can get on the ground and roll over with him, and and roll with the best of it. And I'm like, now he's getting bigger. He's like jumping on top of me, and I'm like, you're getting too big to be jumping on me. And but yeah, I'm amazed. I am so amazed, Tamu, at the dimensions of life. And no one could have ever told me that this place would come,
Yeah.
like that I'd be at this place, like in my life where I can truly say, and my husband has had to teach me. He's a very calm person, and he balances me in ways that I had to learn how to be balanced because I was single longer than I was married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would be like, I have to do it all. I have to do everything. I
Yeah.
became an overachiever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Know all
you
about
know,
it.
yes. And so now, one day he said to me when we got married, he was like, "You're not by yourself. I'm here." And it took me a long time to trust that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. You're not by yourself. I'm here. And I'm glad that you said you didn't get it immediately.
Mm-mm.
You said it still took me time. I had to learn to trust that statement.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But I'm
And
assuming you got there.
I got there. I got there
Yeah.
now. I'm good.
Yeah.
But
That's
I,
good.
I think like people don't really understand, like, and this is one of the things I do like in my coaching program, deliverance is a process
Mm-hmm. It is.
because it's unlearning some patterns
Mm-hmm.
um, that have been ingrained. We talk about, this, I'm telling you this, but we talk about in ACEs, adverse child experiences. We talk about the epigenetics, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing what you're coming with, and what you've been through, and and then like unlearning. One of the biggest things that I'm doing now is just really learning to be okay with who I am,
Mm-hmm.
but also, one of the things the coaching has taught me, like I said, is to control the fixer in me, and just really not being a dumping ground for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and like taking time away. I think I grew up in, like, in church, what I interpreted in church is like, you're supposed to give, 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 give,
Mm-hmm.
give.
Yeah.
And then you don't know how to give to yourself.
You study drowning.
Yes. And I really have learned to hear, and trust. You talking about trusting, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I have to trust that voice of the Father, you know, like trust my heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
When he tells me something, I know that I hear from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it
Yep.
took me a while, you know, with all his good gifts and all the things I had to learn and all the mistakes I really made. I made a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you
Can
know,
I add
I,
to that too?
yeah,
You had mentioned the Heavenly Father and trust in Him, right? So when you had said with your husband, Jason, right?
yes.
What he said to you about trusting Him, and God had said the same thing to me, because
Mm,
I'm divorced, right? My choice. I just always
mm-hmm,
have to say, because
mm-hmm,
people be like, "Oh, like it's not an all. It's okay,"
right.
right? Um,
Mm-hmm,
so I'm divorced, and just like talking to God, like I struggle with trust and just a lot of different things,
mm-hmm.
and just doing, and feel like I always have to do and have to figure it out. And I never forget when God had said to me, "I need you to trust me. Like you don't like to move. Stop taking control.
Mm,
Stop thinking you have to have everything in your control, and you have to fix it and have to do it this way and have to do it that way and
yeah,
all of
yeah,
those things, right?
I
And
get
making
it.
these decisions. And I mentioned the divorce because he was like, you making these decisions, meaning getting married, that I told you not to make, right?
Mm,
You're doing all these things because you trying to fill a void or comfort or whatever the case may be, instead of just coming to me,
girl.
right? And I had
Yes.
to get to that place and was like, okay, right? Just like real like
Mm,
humble and just like, okay, like that's
mm-hmm,
all I could do, right?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I had to grasp that quickly. I couldn't
Yeah.
sit on that too long. I had to grasp it quickly, and I said, "Okay, God, I'm listening."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I had to learn that He got me, and I had to trust Him and not trying to always do it and carry it and move and all of those things, because my past groomed that,
Yeah.
right? And having to learn, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I always say it's funny you mention that too because like I admire I look at my daughter and I go, man, I really admire the woman that she is today. But one of the things I felt that I dropped the ball is I taught her how to I said, man, I taught her how to be a go-getter,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't teach her how to be still,
Mm.
right? I'm learning that now. And I remember I used to get annoyed. My mom used to be like, you know, you did that already. You need to just be still. And I used to be like, what in the world is she talking
Yes.
about? Like, how do you be still? Like, I thought that was like,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have understood
Yep.
it, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
I
Yep.
admire her because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, with that being said, when she became a mom, right? When she became a parent,
Mm-hmm.
she became a mom with two under two, and when she was having postpartum, issues and really bad postpartum, she felt like she was failing because she said, "Well, mom, you didn't do all that, and you were a single parent, you know." And I was like, man, I felt so sad about that statement because I said I didn't want her to think that I made her feel that she had to have everything in control.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't want her to feel like that. And so I watch her now and I love how for her children are like, she does everything around them. She doesn't feel that she has anything to prove. And I don't want her to ever feel that way
Yeah.
because I think the culture that
A
we live in
disservice.
really will make you feel like you're nothing if you don't have A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Exactly.
And that's a lie. That's
It
such a
is.
lie,
It is.
right? Because you have what you have, and I believe as a believer in Jesus Christ that I have what I have because when I was running programs, I didn't even have a degree. I didn't finish my degree. And I was running programs, and this is something that people who don't understand and only depend on what they can do or their culture, that things you have to, not, I always said things didn't line up A, B, C, and D for me. It was always A, G, or Z, They were like, because God has such a calling on my life, and it was really about my will aligning up with His will.
Yeah.
So even when I was out of alignment with His will, it was in the obedience that He would put me back on track, that I would see the fruit of my labor today. And so I'm excited about this. Even now, I'm really appreciating being. I used to be like, oh, we're all the mothers of the church. And I'm like, oh, you're a mother of a church now.
You are.
You are. Like, you're at that stage where you
Welcome.
can give,
Right.
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 You can share, you can be a Miss Franklin to somebody now.
Yeah.
And I'm appreciating every stage of my life. And then one day, as I'm watching the grandbabies, like, I don't have to go backwards. Because He multiplies time, even when we mess up or whenever. So I never wanted, even when I got my part of my story is I got into ministry, not wanting to get into ministry. Does that sound familiar to you?
It,
Like
that's
literally,
why I had to chuckle. That's why I had
yes,
to
my,
chuckle.
yeah, my grandfather was a pastor. My aunt was a pastor. My uncle was a pastor. I have pastors all in my lineage of those 17 children. My mom was going to ministry. I was like, God, I don't even think I want to wear those collars around my neck. Like, that doesn't seem fashion forward, if I will.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And it's funny because it's coming from you. You said it doesn't seem fashion forward.
So I was terrible. I was like, I don't want to do that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny.
So I was terrified when I knew that God was saying, first of all, let me just state this. God did not call me into ministry when I was at my best.
No, I was at my worst.
Me
I was in my
too.
living room floor crying.
Me
And I
too.
said, what? Oh
Right.
my
I
goodness.
didn't even want to tell anybody that was, I didn't want to tell nobody. I didn't want to be like, oh my God, what was that mean? Then I said, God, if you're going to call me when I get married. Because I don't
When
want to
things
do
all
this.
together.
Yeah, like that's when I want to be all together. I want to be like the people that has their husband and they in ministry. And I was like, why would you call me now? Like I am just so wretched and messed up and ratchet,
Your life
whatever
was
you want to
a hot
call it.
mess. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
just a mess. And I was like, ugh. But I think when I said yes, I remember so clearly God saying, you can't, but I said, I can't do this. He said, you can't, but I can.
Yep. Yep.
Like you can't. No, there's no way you can do this. No, but I can. And no, I don't think you should stay in your mess. But I think when you say yes, like he's the one that can turn the mess
Correct.
around. Like he can take the colors of your life and put it on a canvas and then have this beautiful like masterpiece that you're like, wow. And then, it's the anointing, it's the Holy Spirit. It's like it's all of that where you have that's where naked came in for me because it's like if you can take all of your if he can see you fully unclothed and naked and like just in all your flaws, without the spanks. And then, without all of that and just be like, I know who you are. I know who you are. I'm just calling you because I can use you to be a voice for the voiceless. I can use you to be the hands and feet, if you allow me to. You can go into the messy places because you remember what it was like to be messy,
Correct. You were there.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's
Yeah.
funny
So I
too.
was like, I am not. I am
Yeah.
not. And I remember my pastor at the time, I thought I was telling them something. And I was like, well,
Stop.
I am not. I just want to tell y'all something. And I remember saying to God, like, they'll probably laugh at me when I tell them this. And they were like, so we were going to tell you.
See, I knew he was going to say that because I'm like, stop. Because I'm telling you, I went to my pastor that I had at that time and told him the experience I had. He said, yeah, I was just waiting for you to come tell him to mention it so that I can. He said, because I knew. He said, I was just waiting on you. I'm like, what do you mean you were just waiting on me? He said, yeah, I knew. I was just waiting. He said, I figured God would tell you enough and you would, come and have this conversation. He said, I was just waiting. He said, and I'm going to send you to such and such. He said, I was just waiting. Like, what are you talking about?
I know.
I literally was like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Tamu, that's the wires. That's the wires that like my dad would drop on your lap and say, "You're thinking you're trying to figure it out, and God has already have He already has it all planned, and you're just walking into that destiny of all of that." And man,
That's
I'm
crazy.
telling you, I was a little like upset about it, but once I realized like that's what I was supposed to be doing, I didn't even realize that it was like this fire inside of me.
Hmm.
I had no idea like that it was pinned up inside of me and that if
Hmm.
I didn't do it, so almost like if you don't do it, you're gonna die. I don't mean to sound so dramatic, but
No, but yeah. Hmm.
you're gonna die if you don't do. And let me say this, and I know ministry can look so different in different ways, but I
Hmm.
had also something to say.
Correct.
Like a I had God was gonna he said, "You will be my mouthpiece."
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa.
Hmm.
Well, I'm a good and I was like, I think God's calling me to teach. And they cracked up, like it was almost like they laughed because
Hmm.
I didn't even want to say the word preach. I didn't want to say that word
I
because I was
still
like,
don't want to. I just say teach. I still don't. I don't use the word.
I know.
I don't use the B word. I just say, yeah, I teach. I'm a teacher. I won't. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm
It's
running still.
I know, taboo. Oh my God.
That's funny. It's funny. I don't know.
And you're
You're
in
talking
seminary.
about.
Aren't you in seminary now?
I am. Yeah, theology and apologetics is where I'm in school.
Oh,
So here's the. I mean, think about this. You're talking about. I don't know if other people. I hope they take it serious like this, but you're talking about His Word, His Bible, and you want me
to deliver that?
to deliver something as major. It's the most major thing
Oh
ever.
yeah. Yes.
I had a word that's not really a word, so I guess I won't say. I was about to say majorist, which is
Yeah,
not
majorist. I like that word, majorist. It's the most majorist.
majorist
It's
thing
the most
in the
majorist thing.
world. And you telling me you want me to deliver that thing to the world?
Okay. Okay, so ready for this, right?
Um,
So just think about that though. So here think about how it equates, how parallel it is. I'm pregnant, I'm a young mom, and I'm having this baby. And I'm like, you want me to I'm going to deliver this baby? So everything has been about, bringing life. And
right.
that, we as women, we're called to bring life, you
Hmm.
know, since the beginning of time,
Hmm.
right? He called Eve, what did he say? What does he call Eve? Because you're the one in school right now. So,
You
but
put me
the
on the
giver of life, the giver of life. She is the giver of
is.
life.
She is.
So it's so interesting. And so when you give that word out, it is like you're literally in a birthing process.
Yes.
What about all the labor pain you go through before you give a word?
Correct. Correct.
Man,
Right?
it's
Like that
what
thing
is
is
what's the
scary.
new word you said? The majorist? It's like
The
the majorist
majorist.
thing. That's
Yeah,
my new word.
majorist.
Majorist. I'm writing that
And
down.
don't nobody say nothing, put nothing in the comments talking about that's not a word. I already know it's not a word, but majorist. It's a word that
I love it. It's
everybody
majorist.
use. It is. Right? It's so serious. It's so important.
Mm,
I think we handle it so frivolously today.
hmm. Oh
No,
yeah. Oh,
that thing
it's
scares me.
scary. It's like it's so holy. Like I
It
know we say
is.
these things, but like I'm going back to old school because now I could be the mother the mother of the church,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Because I'm old now. But we go back, and it's like, oh my gosh, that you would. I mean, I was so terrified, but then but I believe that when we act out on that kind of faith, it's such a humbling experience because it's like, how would you use somebody like me?
Correct.
That's how I feel. Like I just told you my part of my
Hmm.
story, right?
Hmm.
So like, how would you use somebody like me to do something so majorist?
Correct.
Because that's unbelievable.
Yes.
But here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this. I gotta say this now. I gotta say it because I wasn't gonna say it, but I have to say it. So think about that. You know, I think about women who haven't had children. I think about women who maybe even want children or maybe wanting to give birth to something and don't
Hmm.
know how it's going to happen.
Hmm.
But I know when my husband and I were trying to have children and that didn't happen, and I wrote this book, I painted this picture.
Mm.
Let me see if I can show it a little bit more.
Hmm. That's a good
I
one.
painted this picture. It was a painting first. And when I painted it, I had no idea I was in pain because it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to happen.
Mm.
So in this part right there, I didn't know where people kept saying, "Oh my God, it looks like there's a baby inside."
Mm.
I was giving birth to something that I didn't even know that I was giving birth to in the spirit.
Yeah.
So guess what? When my son came into my life and I had 5 minutes to decide on my son,
Mm.
5 minutes.
Wow.
And he came through our door in the cutest, with the biggest eyes you could ever think of, and the most beautiful boy I'd ever laid eyes on. I said, "What is his name?" And they told me, "Messiah." I said, "God has so much, he has such a sense of humor."
Mm-hmm.
And from that day forth, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be because we didn't sign up. We signed up for something different than what they told me, and I'll just leave it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that God had an assignment, that in his assignment, he said, "Your job is to love the way that need you to love. The outcome is not up to you."
Mm-hmm.
And I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. I can honestly tell you that I asked God to help me not be selfish in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. 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 Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, as you were talking about your son, and so I'm thinking about my little pumpkin. His name is Michael. I'll
Mm.
probably call him Pumpkin forever. It's like, hey, mom,
Love that.
and he lives with me.
Mm.
So him and his mom live with me. So I get the privilege to be able to experience him in all of his pumpkinness
Wow.
and patience. When you talk about patience, right? And sometimes my kids, our kids say, "Well, you didn't let us," or "You seem a little,"
Yes.
and
Hmm.
I got a little wiser. I got a little, I grew up a little stronger, and he
Yep.
has taught me how to be a lot more patient,
Mm-hmm.
calmer, right? And it's just a beautiful thing to watch him, as you were talking about your son Messiah, to watch him grow in all of I call him a genius, because he really is
Mm-hmm.
highly intelligent. And, to be able to just be in his space and experience him, and then to
Yes.
be able to experience her with him,
Yes.
to watch her as a mother and to be able to see it.
It's
And I
beautiful.
tell her, it's like, wow, you're doing a really good job, right?
Wow.
You had to make some hard decisions about different things, but to watch her with him, and their bond that they have is a beautiful thing that I get to
Yes.
see and watch her
Yes.
be a mom.
Wow.
It's a blessing, you know.
Yeah, that's
So it
so
might not have
beautiful.
been our perfect. I'm sorry. It might not have been our perfect way. Like you said, you were 19. I was 20, right? She was also 20. It might not be the perfect way. We weren't married, as we think it. But I know for a fact, and you know for a fact, that God will take that thing
Yes.
and make it something beautiful,
Yes.
right? Right?
Yes.
Made it something beautiful. So thank
Yes.
you. Hmm. Hmm.
And it's not like I'm not. and I always try to make certain that I say this to like younger women or women. I'm not encouraging women to go out and have children out of wedlock at all. I don't, because I know also what comes with that is a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. It could
Yep.
be a lot of pain, and of course, and it still takes a will to be obedient afterwards, right? But there is something about, you don't know who that child is going to be. You don't know
Yep.
who you are going to become,
Correct.
you know. So I hear what you're saying when you said like being able to see your daughter. I kept saying, wow, I can't explain to people how much of a blessing it is to see the dimensions of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're seeing the dimensions of your life
Correct.
in such a way. And my daughter went with my son, she's like, they have so many similarities even today. But I crack up because even though there's this big age gap, what's really funny is that they still they talk about me.
It ain't Jane. No matter how old they are.
Yeah, I was like, I can't believe they're like sitting here talking about me. I'm right here. And he's like, guess what mom did? And she was like, yeah, mom used to do that with me too. But I'm okay with it. I'm like, okay, y'all can have y'all moment about me. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I say this, and I've said this before. I said, as I've learned over the years that, they say love never fails.
Yeah.
And I said lust never satisfies.
It doesn't.
So I've learned to distinguish the difference between the two.
That's
And
good.
so I'm very careful about my appetite,
That's good.
and what it is that I'm delivering, because I have had appetites that weren't so, that just weren't satisfied because I was attached to the wrong people, places, or things.
Yeah. That's good.
But love is what the dimensions are about.
Yeah. That's good. That's
Yeah.
real good. I'm just sitting with that.
It's yeah, it's been true.
Do me a favor. Can you say, because I want people to hear that. Can you say that one more time?
So one of the things that I've learned in this journey and in my story is that love never fails and lust never satisfies.
Folks need to hear that. I feel like people need to hear that, right? And understanding that love never fails. God is love, and lust never satisfies.
Never
Never,
satisfies.
never satisfies. The enemy is always pushing
Always.
our eyes to be bigger,
Always.
see and to want and to thinking it's going to satisfy, and it never does.
Never does.
Because if it did, we wouldn't keep craving and need more and need more and need more. You need more money. You need more sex. You need more this. You need more that.
Oh my
Right? It
gosh.
never,
It
it never
never
satisfies.
satisfies. It
Never.
never satisfies. Let me tell you, I'm trying to make a decision on something now, and I was like, instead of me chasing it, right? It's a business decision. And I was like, okay, if I do this, I'm gonna have to put more money out.
Okay.
And I've already put more money out into this business venture. And there's not a return. But I've noticed the ones that I've already invested that have given me a return. I notice I'm like, okay, that's where I'm supposed to be. The other things, because I'm in this letting go stage of my life where it's like, let go of those things that no longer serve you, even if they're good or you think they're good. They may not be where God would have you.
Correct.
And that's where you got to realize, like, what am I, what's my appetite? What am I, why do I need this? Is it so that I can say, hey, if I'm doing this, what's my motivation
Yep.
behind what am I doing?
Yep.
Because I don't want that. It's not going to produce anything. It doesn't. It's like knowing the difference between like busyness and productivity, you know? And busyness is in that lane of lust because you're like just all over the place. But
Yep.
yeah, you're just moving. You're just moving. And this culture we live in, and I don't have to tell you this to move, but this culture we live in will really trick you if
Yep.
you don't learn to be still.
Yep. We have decided that being still is lazy. There's
Yeah.
a difference. There's a difference
Yes.
between being still
Yes.
and being lazy.
Yes.
Right? Lazy folks don't do nothing. Being still is taking care of yourself, breathing, taking a moment, being in the present, and now I'm going to continue to do what I need to do. And as you were talking about that, one of the things that I have found myself doing, particularly working for myself, I'm like, okay, God, things will come up, right? Different things, different avenues, different jobs, different, in regards to the business. And I've gotten to the place where I say, Lord, particularly there's been situations where it's been a nice chunk of change, however you say that,
Mm.
chunk of change sitting in front of me, money
Right.
wise, right? And I'll say to the Lord, okay, money looks good, seem harmless, but Lord, if it's not for me, shut the door. If it is for me, allow me to walk through it. And there's been situations where he shut, and I've been literally, okay, not
Yeah.
crying like, oh my God, I could have had, no. Because if I
No.
walked through that door, there's something about that door that wasn't right, no matter how much money it would have put in
Yeah.
my pocket. There would
Mm-hmm.
have been, and it's funny, there's this one situation I'm thinking of, not going to necessarily clear and say exactly what it was,
Yeah.
but it was traveling, and it was a big deal, and it was a nice hunk of money. And after God said no, I found out more about it and some of the things that they were doing at this thing and some of the things she wanted me to be a part of um, was not of him. And it's
Mm.
not that it was doing off the wall stuff. I'm talking about as far as like spirituality and
Yeah.
different things
Your
that folks
values and
practice.
beliefs. Yeah.
Yes. And when I found, I was like, wow, God. And I found this out after he said no.
Wow.
And I said, okay. And then when I found out some of the things that were going to take place at this conference, I was like, wow, you so good. You so good. And then
Yep.
not too long ago, I got another big contract. You
See
understand what
that?
I'm saying?
I love it.
You know what
That's
I mean?
only what he does. Soon as you
That's what
walk
he
in
does.
obedience, he really does take care of you.
That's what he does. He's so
He
good.
really does. He's a father. He
He,
wants to take care of us.
he's a
How,
good,
how
good
do we
father,
know?
right?
We've been single parents. So if people say, "Oh, how do you have big faith like that?" Because I've seen I have receipts, as the young people say. I got receipts for this.
Yes. I'm gonna grab it right here. A friend of mine, as a preacher, some time ago, what was it? I was at an event that we were a part of, and she had brought me a gift, Miss Debbie, and these are mustard seeds,
Wow.
right? And it's this whole thing. I can't even take the lid off, so it's filled to the top with mustard seed. And she had a letter, and then she said to me, she said, "I've never met anyone in my life that has more faith than you." To me, she said, when we talk and I hear about the different things you've been through, and it's like you just have faith to know that it's going to work out. I said, I have to. I don't have any other choice otherwise. So that's why she
Wow.
gave me this jar full of mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
We know that God said if you just have faith as small as this
Oh,
mustard
is it?
and she said, yeah, I never met anyone. Like,
Wow.
you just believe it's going to turn out. I said, I have to.
Yeah.
If I don't, where's
What
the hope
what
in
what else
me?
is gonna happen? Yeah.
Like, I want you to have that kind of faith too,
It's so true.
right?
And he does bless like that measure of faith like that you have.
He
I
does
mean, we could probably sit here and like compare stories
all day.
all day about that because um you know, very recently and I like I said, I'm learning some things, but I didn't even realize because we know in the work that we do about how the body keeps the score
Hmm.
and you know certain illnesses and but I was sitting across from my daughter and I was doing work with her because we do a lot of work together. And she says something like, Mom, breathe. And now I'm even more conscious of like, because I was always doing, I wasn't even breathing correctly. I would like hold my breath. I was like, and then I'm like, oh, that's why, Dena, you would carry the weight or the pain in your back or your shoulders. So in this season of my life, when I tell you I'm unlearning some things, it's because I'm even learning how to breathe correctly. And I know you do a lot of work with the body, mind, and soul. So in some of my work that I'm doing now with brain health, I just became a mentor with Dr. Amen. And I'm real excited about that. And I've been doing some of the wellness programs that I do is around brain health and, incorporating that into some of the work that I do. But the other thing was, learning how to pay attention to my body.
Yeah.
Like learning how to pay attention when something's not feeling right.
Yep.
Okay, what's happening, Dena, even when you're having that conversation? All of that, because in the doing, even though I was a single parent and, I was on this road, like, I am not going to fail at this. I'm going to do this right and blah, blah, blah. But I think I stopped breathing. I didn't know how to breathe. I was always carrying. And now I think at this season, God is like, you can let go and breathe. If you don't, keep holding your breath that long and see how long you'll last. So sometimes when I feel myself tightening, I go, I just start to breathe. And because I do think it has an impact physically on my body.
It does.
And I want to live long enough to be able to see my children's children.
Yeah.
Children.
Yeah. So important. As you were saying that, I think I told you I'm a powerlifter. So one of the
Wow.
things in doing that, he's constantly to move, breathe. Because I have this, this tendency, particularly when there's heavy weight, that's like kind of the same, right? When we have heavy weight on us, we don't breathe. So I'm doing a squat and I got this heavy 200 something pounds on my back. He's like, to move, breathe.
Wow.
I don't want you to move. I don't want you to squat until you breathe. Right? It's the same thing.
That is so
Right? We
good.
going through life with all
That's
this
so
heavy
good.
weight. And we like, what we're doing and we holding our breath. It's like, we're about to pass out. We got to breathe. Right? So this just happened to someone the other day. They were struggling and da-da-da-da. I said, breathe. They was like, I can't breathe. I said, breathe. Because you about to pass out. You about to hyperventilate. Have yourself breathe.
There's
Stop.
no oxygen going to your
No.
yeah, you're not breathing.
No.
Yeah. And I wasn't breathing for a long time. Cause I knew I had a badge of like knowing how to carry heavy weight.
Correct. It's like a
Right?
badge of
So
honor.
it's the badge of honor. I was like,
Right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can bring home the bacon, all those lies, fried up in a pan.
Yep.
That tells you how old I am, that commercial. But, just like learning how to like it and then having that narrative, you talk about stories, having that narrative in my head for so long, like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to carry all of it on my weight, on myself. You know, not thinking about like, oh, I can get help. I can ask for help. I don't have to
Yeah,
do
you
this by
can.
myself. Even as a
Yeah.
business owner, learning how to get help for my business and like, you don't have to figure it all out. And um, there is power in connectivity and resources. And where did you get that from? What limited belief systems did you have that you believe that lie?
Yep. Because it is a lie.
It is a lie. It's a lie. We
As
never
they
had to
say,
be
straight
the
from
heavy
the pits of
lifters.
hell, right? That's where it
Yes.
comes
Send
from.
it back.
It's a lie.
It's a lie, and it's a lie from the enemy. He's been doing that to Eve, like, since the beginning of time.
Yep. And we believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get to a place where we say, okay, no more.
Mm-hmm.
No more.
Right. So that we can teach it to the next generation.
All right.
that they don't have to be the heavy lifters of their own lives.
You
You
can
know,
ask for
we
help.
we know those words like bear one another burdens, but we don't really
We
believe
don't do
that.
it. Yeah, we don't do it.
We don't do it.
Yeah, so we have to get better, right? And knowing that it's okay to take care of yourself, it's okay to ask for help, all of that. And we have to breathe. Otherwise, you're going to pass out.
Yes, we have to breathe. I was like, oh my God. And so I love like, I hear a lot of people talk about like learning how to breathe and, people talking about meditative practices. And a lot of people were like, oh, that's new age. And I said, really? Jesus said, meditate on the word day and night.
That's what he said.
And if you, though, I was like, nothing new under the sun.
No.
Some of those practices were taken from us.
And you don't think Jesus breathed?
And you don't think he
When he
break?
took
Yeah,
break?
that he had to get away from the
Correct.
people
He got
and
away.
like sit and like we haven't been using our own practices.
Correct.
Those practices are in the Word of God.
They are. And we so clueless because we don't read
Yes,
it. We don't read it.
we
So,
don't exactly. So when you don't read it, you don't know it, and then you think that it belongs to somebody else. And I was like,
no,
I'm taking back what belongs to me.
exactly.
Because that belongs to me. I'm supposed to meditate. I'm supposed to sit quiet and be still
Get away.
and
Sit.
get away
Breathe.
and, take care of myself and my body and
Mm-hmm.
that's not a selfish thing.
Nope. Nope.
It's not a selfish thing.
Nope. I mean, he lives in us. This is our temple. You got to take care of it. What you doing? Right? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
good.
like that. We do it in our naked chat. The Yahweh, like just that breath
Mm-hmm.
itself. If you say Yahweh, it's like you're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and ours comes with power and anointing on it
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really dope to me
Mm-hmm. It
that
is.
we can have that kind of breath.
It is. It is. Wow. This has been wonderful.
Yes, it has.
This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've enjoyed having this conversation. I haven't had it in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
You're very welcome. It's been an honor to be able to hear from you and hear a lot of nuggets, and I'm sure many people will appreciate it, and be encouraged by it. Right.
Mhm.
Um, One, if nothing else, what we just last talked about in regards to breathing
Mm.
and seeking God and taking care of ourselves and doing the necessary work to
Mhm.
heal, and not thinking that we all have to do it ourselves because we don't. Right. But I'm so encouraged by your story, by your journey. You know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and so are you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say, thank you so much. One of the things is an activity or exercise that I always do in the book. It's called Who's in the Mirror. And every time I'm able to connect with women and people that are like minded, and sometimes even don't necessarily have to be exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
but I see a mirror reflection. So just being on this call with you has made me realize that reflective
Mm.
who's in the mirror. Like I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, Samu and I, it's like looking in the mirror and seeing yourself. So that's what, I'm excited about. I'm honored. And I've learned, even talking with you today, more about myself. So I've just honored to be here. And I can't wait to hear more of your podcast and what you're doing for the body, mind, and soul because it's so needed and so necessary. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your grandiose and what was our word? Uh
Oh wait,
majorist
majorist.
majorist
Yes,
faith that you have. I love
yes,
that majorist faith.
yes.
I
Forget that
love it. It's
in a
awesome.
dictionary. Yes,
We
awesome.
created a new word.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's beautiful. But I thank you. Anything? I know you said you have the. If you want to mention the training you have coming up again.
We do have the
And where can they
coaching.
go to sign up? Mention that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have our next cohort where we partner with churches, individuals, and leaders who want to work with vulnerable communities, and really all of us are vulnerable, to be honest, if we're truthful enough. But we learn some real tools and walk away with the ethics of coaching. So a lot of people call themselves a coach, like they're like, oh, I'm a coach, but it's like really what coaching is and what it isn't. And I always say Jesus is the ultimate coach. So we use a lot of biblical principles, and we study actually how he asked questions. And what some people may not realize is that he asked, I think it was like 360 questions.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, and only answered three of those three. So it really shows you the power if we follow his lead. And so our coaching course is February the 27th. It's on the website www.denabillups.com. And you can click on the link. You can do a free consultation if you need more questions. There's also a video of people who have gone through the course. So if anybody just needs more information, and we kind of have an outline of what that looks like. It's a 15-week course. So it starts in February and I think it ends in June. And we have facilitators. Once people complete it, they get a certification of completion of the program, and for a trauma-informed coaching program, they can use it, for their work, their ministry, what have you, that says that they completed, I think it's 75 hours of training. And it's asynchronous and synchronous learning. And we also have, very skilled facilitators, and we have a coach's corner. So once you go through the program, we have a coach's corner that meets every month with all of our coaches. We've graduated probably over almost close to 100 students now.
Wow. Well, I am going to actually just send all that information to me because I want to put it into the description so that way
Oh,
people
wow.
didn't get what you just said. If they didn't get it all, they can just look in the description and get all of that. And also, if you can send me the book information as well, and I'll put that in the description as well. People
Absolutely.
just want to purchase the book also. So,
Yep. And if you know any moms, since we talked about moms that are in the Burlington County area that need maternal services, doula services, we have trained doulas that work with. We're located in Burlington. I'll send that link as well for that website, and you can see all the things that we've done or we look for volunteers and people who are just interested in that area who want to work with mothers and volunteer. They're more than welcome as well.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you
Thank
again.
you, Tamu.
Awesome. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Bye.